Senator Markey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cities and towns around Massachusetts are grappling with the costs of building new water treatment facilities and are worried about the liability costs associated with PFAS. And they're putting in all this work and this expense for one reason: to keep people safe. Because when these toxic so-called forever chemicals build up in our environment and make their way into our food, our water, our bodies, we now know that they are connected to harmful effects. CERCLA, also known as the Superfund law, is a key piece of legislation that we used to fight back against toxic chemicals. I was in the room on the committee in the House of Representatives drafting Superfund. I brought the Woburn case to the committee so that they could see what was happening in Woburn, where company after company had just dumped all of these chemicals into the groundwater and ultimately into the water and into the lives of children catching leukemia and other diseases, which were avoidable. That became the movie A Civil Action, the book of Civil Action, and that's what I fought for and introduced into the deliberation in 1980 on the committee against the will of all those companies that were fighting me in Woburn, Massachusetts, in the community which I represented. So it's been used over the years, and this is now a refrain that keeps coming back. The first Reagan administration, by 85, 86, they were trying to undermine Superfund. In the 1990s, they were trying to do it again. And so I know what this law means to communities and families around the country who worry about whether they're going to get poisoned with some companies' long ago actions. So let's look at how it really works. Ms. Bowers, is it true that the Environmental Protection Agency, when enforcing the Superfund law, targets bad actors who are responsible for significant releases?
Yes, that's correct, Senator.
Yeah, they go after the actual polluters to clean up their own contamination, reduce potential litigation, costs on water utilities, and prevent an increase in water affordability. Ms. Bowers, in the 45 years since the passage of Superfund, has the EPA historically used its enforcement discretion when dealing with utilities and municipalities?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I don't have specific data on the instances in which the agency has used its enforcement discretion. That it may not necessarily be publicly visible when an agency has declined to pursue enforcement. What I can tell you, though, is that EPA has indicated in various enforcement discretion policies and guidance over the years since CERCLA's enactment that it typically seeks not to pursue municipal governments for cleanup costs under CERCLA unless there is some sort of extenuating circumstance.
Right. So the enforcement discretion has been utilized for a majority of the environmental cleanups with hazardous substances. And I'm worried about any efforts that would create loopholes in the statute of the landmark Superfund law, which has built-in protections to avoid those not responsible for releases from liability. Ms. Bowers, just to put a fine point on it, have we ever passed laws that exempt specific groups from the liability framework for certain chemicals under Superfund?
Thank you, Senator. Not with respect to specific chemicals, but Congress has enacted liability exemptions that would apply across the full suite of chemicals designated under CERCLA.
CERCLA already possesses a series of options for parties who minimally contribute to contamination between de minimis and de micromis settlements and ability to pay agreements. Entities can be safeguarded from liability that they should not have to incur. And EPA already has a wide variety of tools to protect parties who aren't responsible for pollution from undue liability. We actually need to preserve our polluter pay laws without putting huge potholes in it to trap us later on. So as we work to clean up the toxic forever chemicals already here, we have to stop new PFAS from getting into the environment. We're trying to bail out our boat without plugging the hole in the bottom. We're at risk of sinking no matter what. This is particularly true when EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has yet to give any PFAS compounds a designation to standardize disposal procedures and has rolled back drinking water standards on PFAS compounds formerly set during the Biden administration. That backsliding undermines the Safe Drinking Water Act. There are hundreds of varieties of these compounds, and Administrator Zeldin won't even make steps towards a few of them. Meanwhile, the toxic stream of these products continues into our environment. We need to clean up our act across the board. That means stopping new toxics from getting in, supporting cleanup efforts in our towns, and focusing our energy on the companies that have been causing the damage. And if I may, Madam Chair, there are currently no federal regulations governing the incineration of PFAS, which can be sent to municipal solid waste incinerators, sludge incinerators, burn pits, and hazardous waste incinerators that are not designed for this purpose. Clean Harbors' own studies show that effects of PFAS incineration depend heavily on temperature and operating conditions, and we know that many municipal incinerators operate at temperatures that cannot safely destroy PFAS. So, Mr. Gerstenberg, Massachusetts, thank you for being here. Would Clean Harbors support the designation of PFAS as hazardous waste under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act so EPA could establish uniform health protective standards for the disposal of PFAS-containing waste?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we believe that high concentrations of PFAS needs to be disposed of in high-temperature, RCRA-permitted incinerators. Those high temperatures have been proven to properly destroy PFAS compounds. And so when limitations are put in play, those highly concentrated must be managed into incinerators that are regulated, highly regulated by the EPA and have proven that high temperature, not municipal incinerators, high temperature RCRA permitted incinerators have been proven to properly destroy PFAS.
Yeah, so this designation is merely a recognition of what we already know. PFAS is a dangerous substance that needs to be responsibly disposed of, and this would protect the health of the communities living in those areas. So we thank you so much for that testimony. We thank all of you. Thank you, Madam Chair.